Be like, hi friends, welcome back to Not Again, the preschool that brings podcast level analysis to college level content. Okay, no, here we go. Hi friends, welcome back to Not Again, the podcast that brings college level analysis to preschool level content. I'm one of your hosts, Rebecca.
I'm your other host, Alan.
And today we are continuing to talk about Beauty and the Beast 2017.
Live action, sort of, with CG.
It's a lot of CG. It's more live action than The Lion King.
It's more animated than not animated.
It's still, got Emma Watson in it. Right off the top, I actually have notes. You can always tell when I'm prepared because we say stuff at the top instead of me fumbling at the very end to be like, we also need to thank patrons. Welcome to our next new patron. You should check out her podcast. It goes down in the PM, provided, of course, you are ready for some raunchier content than our podcast. And she has had a request for us to talk about a show called Bluey, which I had never heard of, but I Googled it. It seems to be a show about a dog. It's a cartoon. I'm game. We'll do that maybe next. I don't know. Did we know
we'll do that at some point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're doing this week and next week Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, we're still on this for a bit.
Yeah, because in case you didn't notice, we spent 40 minutes talking about the opening sequence last time. So we're going to get past the intro. The other thing is, spoiler alert for Beauty and the Beast 2017. I forgot it last time, but that's okay because we barely got past the intro. And I have a couple clarifications to make. The first is Disney using the live action films to fix plot holes is not something that's on the record. It's something that I surmised from watching these movies. I made it sound like somebody had, as a spokesperson, gone up to a podium and been like, and we, by the year 2025, will have fixed all the plot holes, and that is a guarantee. Like, no, I don't know if they've said that they're going to do that or not. I don't know if they've ever spoken to it one way or the other. I just know that it seems very apparent that that's what they're trying to do.
Can there really be a spoiler alert for Beauty and the Beast, a fairy tale that Disney decided they owned and then are now viciously re-upping their copyright? I think it's just like in storybooks from the 1800s.
Yeah, and they basically more or less copied the story from the 90s princess movie, so even more so. It's, yeah. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was the opening narration. I forgot one thing, and I know I said we were going to move past the opening narration, but this has got to. I got a direct quote, and I think in transcribing the direct quote, I think I got what they intended the meaning to be, but it took a lot of analysis for me to get there. The opening narration says, after the beast has been cursed and whatever, as days bled into years, the prince and his servants were forgotten by the world, for the enchantress had erased all memory of them from the minds of the people they loved. So what that sounded like to me, and what really frustrated me, is it sounded like she was saying both that time passage had to do with them being forgotten and that magic had to do with them being forgotten. And it's like, which is it, lady? Was it the days bleeding into years that had them being forgotten, or was it because they were erased from the memories? But I think, as I wrote it down, I noticed that she specifically said they were erased from the people they loved, which makes no sense because the whole town's forgotten them. But if the people they loved aren't looking for them or talking about them, maybe the rest of the world forgets about them? That's kind of...
Well, we have what was the married couple? Was it Mr. Potts and
Mr. Potts and Mrs.
Potts? Which is a plot hole that, again, didn't need to happen because who cares if there's a Mr. Potts?
Sometimes people can be single moms.
Yeah, sometimes you can just be Mrs. Potts without a Mr. Potts. But apparently they needed to fix that one.
Yeah.
So they made a Mr. Potts in town.
Who forgot.
Who forgot that he had a family, and they even do a little gag about it in the song.
Yeah.
Where somebody says, like, oh, what's going on with you? He's like, well, I can't remember, and I've forgotten what I can't remember. It's the whole Neville Longbottom, orb thing.
Yeah.
Remember all thing, which is supposed to be funny, but if you think about it, it's super duper sad. And why is the Enchantress separating this family who apparently has done nothing to no one?
Well, as we'll learn today or next week, it's because they deserve it, obviously.
Yeah. That was a sarcastic yeah.
Yes. Speaking of which, I sounded like I was giving a sarcastic gold star to Disney for being more diverse with their casting. And the sarcasm was not that I was upset to see diverse casting. It was that keep doing it, Disney, but you're a little late to the game. You should have been doing that a while ago. But anyway,
half measures basically. And,
A for effort, but the effort should have come, a long time ago. The Beast's lesson, we talked about how Belle is really the one to learn it. I wonder if the intention was that she teaches it to him because he thinks that she won't love him because he's a beast and she loves him anyway, therefore teaching him that it is possible. It's so convoluted. It's like, because she falls in love with him the way he looks, he learns that he can be loved despite his appearances and therefore that he should love despite other people. I'm trying to make it make sense. Just in case people wanted to push back on us saying that the wrong person learns the lesson.
The movie undermines this. I mean, I don't know. The cartoon does a better job, but the live action, quote unquote, does a worse job where at the end of the movie, she implies that she might have liked him better the other way.
Oh, God. Yeah, we'll have to.
So
I'm not going to say it. You know what? Punch me in the face every time I say it. Oh, wait, you can't. Okay. Pinch me every time I'm about to say we'll get to that because I said it 6 times last episode. But yeah, so
apparently there
are a couple instances.
The inner beauty didn't necessarily
factor into it,
capture her in the way it was supposed to.
Right. Yes, that's true. And there's a couple instances of that I'm going to bring up actually. But yes, I think that's it for clarifications. There's just a couple shout outs I want to give now. Number one to one Wyndham Jennings, awesome name. Wyndham Jennings and his wife surmise that the whole town, including the castle, is caught in a time loop. And I like that theory. He explained it thusly. Basically, it's in a time loop or bubble. It's not daily. According to him, they think maybe every month or year it loops because everybody keeps mentioning that it's June in the film. And it is. So maybe it's always June kind of thing. And that's why they don't remember anybody because their memory keeps resetting. And Belle and her dad aren't affected because they moved in after the curse was cursed. The town was cursed. There we go. So they're not affected because they are outsiders basically. And so Belle walks through the market without really looking where she's going, but still manages to avoid everything because everything always happens the same way. A loop would also explain why...
there goes the baker with his tray like always.
Yes, exactly. And I'm leaving that in. I hope you know.
Oh, well, then I should sing it better.
No. I'm not letting you.
Oh, come on.
You sang it better than I ever could. Why are you rubbing in that you can hit a note?
I know. I felt bad about it. Anyways.
Yes.
That makes a little sense. It's a Groundhog Day situation where the Bill Murray character is just
yes.
And that's when the guy drops the tray. And that's when the person steps in the puddle. And that's when the car crashes.
And also it would explain why Cogsworth's wife, it's hard to say Cogsworth's, and Mrs. Potts' husband are not older than because obviously the furniture people didn't age, but when they got transformed back, it had been years. Their spouses should have actually exceeded them in age if time went on as normal for them.
Yeah, I was curious about that. Have they lost 15 years?
Exactly.
Because that's
Chip is still a child. Chip is still, he has lost time. He's been a child eternally, for not eternally, obviously.
Well,
but
that's still cruel because
it is.
You want people to, not to say there's anything wrong with being 8 years old, but being 8 years old is not what you want to be for many, many years.
Yes.
You want to advance to the next stage of your life.
Yes. And as you were pointing out, why punish this child? Later, Mrs. Potts will give a half-tushed reason why the servants deserve to be punished, but certainly Chip didn't deserve to be punished. So, we'll get it.
He certainly...
Nope. Pinch me. No, don't pinch me. I pinch myself. Anyway, deep breath. The tree also resets. So there's a tree that gets knocked down by lightning that allows, what's-his-face, Belle's dad, Maurice... Crazy old Maurice. Anyway, so the tree gets knocked down by lightning and Maurice finds his way to the castle and Belle finds her way to the castle. But later when Maurice takes Gaston, the tree is back in place. So obviously it's supposed to be magic or whatever. But it could also be a time loop. So I thought that was a cool fan theory. And Mr. Jennings is going to appear in Hellbound. He is one of the ones who responded to my tweet asking for names. And he said that his was a bit unique. And I was like, yes, but Jennings is a perfect last name for a teacher. So I believe one of the teachers who gets mentioned in the book is Mr. Jennings.
Well, congratulations.
Yes.
And
congratulations on being on this book that a few people are going to read. But no, thank you so much for donating your last name and for the fan theory. The only other thing I would say is I've been chatting with a different podcaster who is one of the hosts of Fanatically Correct, which is on my review list. But obviously, since it's a new edition, I won't get to it for, 7 years. He goes by LM on Twitter, but we were chatting and he sent me a link to a Pixar short called Float. And I watched it, and Alan hasn't yet because I warned him, and I will warn everyone who's listening right now that this is the type of thing that you watch when you are emotionally ready to watch it. It is impactful. Suffice it to say that parents of neurodivergent children will feel very seen, and so I wanted to shout him out and thank him for showing me that short. I didn't know about it, and it touched me in deep within my heart and soul, and it made me kind of weep, but also happy. And I thought that the allegory within it was wonderful. No spoilies, but basically they have an allegory in there for neurodivergence, but they make it a positive allegory, if that makes sense. So they're not associating neurodivergence metaphorically with anything negative. So they're showing like you are neurodivergent, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. You just see the world a different way. And so I really appreciated that. So one day when you're feeling up to it, you should watch it. But I didn't want to force you to watch it just for this podcast because it's not the type of thing that you should just watch on a whim. You should be ready.
I can see how that would, depending on my emotional state, just like catch me the wrong way. And I'm like, oh, well, for the next 20 minutes, I'm not going to be here.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, I can only speak for myself, but in a world where I did not have a neurodivergent child, I still would have been affected watching it. But I know for a fact that I would not have fully understood. Like there would have been a detachment from the emotions within the short film, I think, if I did not have a neurodivergent child. So I still felt very seen. So that's just those are the shout outs and the corrections. And now that we are 100 minutes into the podcast, let us continue to talk about live action Beauty and the Beast. Also, I realized that I brought up on an audio medium the visuals of my long notes list and my plot holes list. For the sake of transparency, I intend to take a screenshot of my plot hole list and share it next week with the release of the last episode in this small series. So that's fun. But I do have my plot hole list here. The last thing that we talked about was just tearing Emma Watson apart and her going bye. So we're going to continue on. Gaston, the way that they wrote his first interaction with Belle, it seemed like he was just a doofus who was genuinely trying to connect with her on her level about her interests. And I know that they fixed it pretty quickly with him talking about how she needed to get married and have babies and walking on her cabbages, which required more effort to do than not to do. You have to be very deliberate to walk specifically on a row of cabbages, all of that stuff. And then, of course, like punching her father in the face or whatever. But in the very beginning, he goes up to her and says, good morning, or bonjour, whatever, bonjour. What did I say? I said like bon voyage. I cannot speak French to save my life. He says bonjour.
It'd be funny if he spoke French wrong.
Yeah. And she says bonjour, and then he's like, oh, are you enjoying the book? Like, nice book, whatever. He's trying, and she says, oh, have you read it? And he says, no, not that one, but books. And like, it just kind of seems like he's trying. And obviously they still aren't meant to be, but it's more like lovable doofus than predator, which is what he is.
Yeah, and they characterize him like way more. He's a former captain. Like he has a lot more kind of like clout in the town based on like what he's done,
anger issues as well,
in real life. And so it's like, and again, this goes back to pacing. This movie needed to be 90 minutes long, and they added all of this stuff later. that didn't need to be added. Like Gaston, like he's a villain, and he puts his muddy boots up on tables, and he is roughly the size of a barge.
Which he isn't. That's another problem.
Oh, yeah, we need to mention that.
In the cartoon, he literally grows a little bit. The cartoon expands as he sings roughly the size of a barge, because cartoons can do that. And he's picking up the triplets who are sitting on a bench in one hand, because cartoons can do that. And then in the tavern, he lifts two young women onto his shoulders and is like, I'm the size of a barge. And I'm like, first of all, you are the size of a dinghy at best. Second of all, you're doing something that not everybody can do, but I'm not impressed.
So
anyway, you were saying something.
We got to get a little bit back to casting. Yeah. So he's very handsome as a person, as a real live person.
Honestly,
the actor.
I was unimpressed.
Okay, we have different types.
Yeah.
The actor is handsome and can sing.
I think that's. I mean, unless
I'm mistaken.
I have no reason to believe they dub him and not Emma Watson.
He was not. My understanding is that he was not dubbed. He is much smaller of a human than Maurice.
That was a big stink. Is Kevin Kline plays Maurice, and he is 6'1", and I know that Disney and Disney Pixar have a history of associating short people with being either evil or comedic, as happens in Beauty and the Beast with the cartoon, with Lefou and Maurice both being short and evil and comedic. Not Maurice being evil, but but still, he was supposed to be a frail old man, and he's 6'1". Meanwhile, Luke Evans who plays Gaston, is 5'11", according to IMDb. So casting, he's not the size of a barge. I'm sorry, he just isn't. So it just doesn't make sense. These lyrics don't make sense with it. But we need to jump back though. Was there anything else you were trying to say something though about his casting and his characterization? And he brought Belle flowers when he first.
Oh, that's
so
true.
He brought her flowers, asked her about her interests, and tried to connect with her. And then he was like, "Could we have dinner?" And she was like, "No," and she just walked away rolling her eyes. And in that moment, she looked like the jerk.
That's fine. You can just be like, I'm not interested. It's not a big deal. You're fine and all. You don't even have to say that. You can just be like, thanks, but no thanks.
Sure, she has every right to say no.
She has every right to say no. But like in that moment, he's just a man about town with some flowers like, hey, you want to have dinner sometime? And you can be no, but like that's not, I'm a huge dingus.
Yeah. Then when Lefou is like, oh, so are you going to move on? He says, no, she's playing hard to get, which makes her sweet prey. So as soon as he calls her...
Yeah, that's the turn.
So as soon as he calls her prey, they kind of fix it, obviously. I mean, he certainly doesn't go uphill from there. He goes rapidly downhill. But in the very first interaction, I just found it like, if you were a person who had never seen Disney's Beauty and the Beast before, and this was your first time, you might sit there thinking... why is she being so mean to this Gaston guy? You know,
well, yeah. Well,
I said Gaston, but that's fine. You've never seen Beauty and the Beast.
This Gaston guy.
Beauty and the Beast. You've never seen it before, so you might have forgotten his name by the beginning.
But this is kind of movie making 101. You have to tell the audience. You can't assume the audience knows the story before you get there. You have to like let them know what's going on. So very quickly, if a guy walks up with some flowers and is being kind for 2 minutes, the audience is going to get confused. And then if you twist the character, that's fine. But like that has to be on purpose.
To compare it to the cartoon, because we've never done that before, Gaston walks up to her and is like, you don't need books, takes the book out of her hands, says, what is this, a sandwich with words? What is that? Was that The Onion? Or I can't even remember. That's not my joke, but that was hilarious.
Yeah, it's good.
And then he throws it into a muddy puddle immediately. And when she tries to pick it up, he gets in her way. Immediately you've established that this guy's a jerk, right? So it was just done a little bit more effectively. And of course, it was all showing, right? She calls him primeval and he says thank you because he doesn't know big words, right? That kind of thing. No telling there. And it's done much better. So yes, that's that. So now my next note is actually only 3 words. My next note is Lefou is gay. But I put gay in scare quotes because there was a big kerfuffle about him being gay openly, and he's not openly gay in the film. At best, at the very end, he considers dancing with another attractive young man, and then it cuts away. So
the word open is very important here. He is not openly.
Yeah.
He very well could be, but honestly, not established.
Yeah. I mean, Dan O'Brien in his Obsessive Pop Culture Disorder YouTube series already talked about this, and we already talked about this in a past episode, but when Gaston asks Lefou why he's not married, if he were openly gay, he would have said, well, it's because I enjoy the company of men. Gaston, you know this. I've already told you that, and I told your mother that, and everyone in town knows, and I'm not ashamed. But instead he says, I'm too clingy, right? He passes it off. So this is a character who is gay only because Josh Gad, who is straight, as far as I know, is told to act gay. And he doesn't do it in a particularly offensive manner. He's mostly subtle with it, but it's still, were they even trying for representation at that point, right? They kept him closeted because they didn't want to be too forward with it because they still want jerks money, right? Well, there's racists and bigots out there and homophobes, and they have money and they could go to movie theaters, and Disney still wants that money. And so they're not really satisfying anybody with that. And on top of that, because he's gay, he can't remain a villain in Disney's eyes because that means that they are associating gayness with villainy. And so he has this really awkward shoehorned in switch to the good guy's side moment at the end, in the middle of this big fight scene. He and Mrs. Potts just have a chat. And Mrs. Potts is like, I thought you were a villain. And he was like, yeah, I was a villain, but now I'm not. And she's like, that's good. It's good that you're not a villain anymore because gay people aren't villains. We support gay people. And look, I'm not about to be like, Beck Scoos for saying gay people are villains. Like, no. What I'm trying to say is people are sometimes villains and people are sometimes good. And their sexual orientation doesn't play into it at all. So a gay person could be a villain if they were also a jerk. Just like a straight person could be a villain if they're also a jerk.
Just to be annoyingly statistical, if 10% of cis men are gay, then 10% of evil cis men are gay.
Yes, right. But they had to shoehorn this thing in because they couldn't be seen to even unintentionally be implying that his gayness makes him evil. And while I suppose I'm glad that they don't want to send that message. It was so clunky. I just wish that they hadn't decided to make him implied gay in the first place.
Well,
right?
Yeah. Well, it's also mushy, and they wanted to have their cake and eat it too.
Yes.
They wanted to have the character and the representation, but they also wanted to not offend anybody, and they didn't want to
There's a couple things I want to say. First, I wonder if they even wanted the representation because the scandal was probably the best advertising they could have gotten for that movie. The headlines for weeks were like, Lefou is gay, and then people were like, don't watch Beauty and the Beast. And of course that means people are going to watch, it's free advertising, right? And the other thing is making him gay, they made it so he's clearly in love with Gaston for most of the movie. And so that reinforces a stereotype that if you're a gay dude and you have a straight male friend, you're secretly in love with him and lusting after him all the time because that's how it works with straight people. Anytime they meet someone of the opposite sex, they immediately lust after them and can't get them out of their minds and only think of them as a potential romantic partner. And so I wish that he had been gay and not at all interested in Gaston, just cause.
And I have a problem with this as well. I understand why in the 70s and 80s you had to have kind of coded gay relationships in movies, and people said, oh, well, maybe they're into each other, and because there would have been controversy and there would have been boycotts and there would have been book burnings or whatever. But there are other male-male relationships that aren't that. He's a toady. Yeah. He's a latcher-on. He's a person who's hooked on to this guy.
He seeks out power.
By
hanging on to who's powerful.
And that's not a romantic relationship.
Yeah, no. And he can be gay while doing that or not. But here's one other thing that we have to address, and I'm going to try to do it as delicately as possible, okay? Because I end up putting my foot in my mouth a lot, as people know. One of the unnecessarily added conflicts in this film is that there are people in this poor provincial town who don't think women should be educated, so much so that they decide to sabotage donkey laundry. And We'll.
That's the title right there, Donkey Laundry.
I almost made it. Donkey Laundry almost was the title of the last episode. I'm not going to lie. But I just intend to say Donkey Laundry every episode, so I just got to do it one more time next week. So they're sexist, right? And they don't believe that women should do things. Still being delicate here. Let's say everyone knows about Lefou, okay? So we have a little town in century France, hundreds of years ago, where they don't believe women should read, but they do have a diverse population when it comes to sexual orientation and race, and they seem perfectly okay with that. And so you can't...
It's anachronistic.
Yes.
It's anachronistic.
I'm not saying kick the people of color out of the
Right.
movie. Like I didn't want to see an all-white cast.
When Caesar opes his doublet, like you picked something...
What?
Julius Caesar opened his doublet in
Right.
the play,
Yeah.
oped his doublet, and
He wouldn't have been wearing a
he
doublet.
wouldn't have been wearing a doublet.
Right.
But in Shakespeare, they always wore modern clothes because they were...
Of course.
Yeah.
This is what they had available
It's what
to
they
them.
had
It's the
available, and it
sensibilities
was
of the time.
also what everybody wanted to see.
Yeah.
It's anachronistic. So you pick one ism, sexism, and then you say, but we're cool about other things.
Yeah.
And of course, if you were time period correct,
No, they
there
wouldn't be.
there would be several things you wouldn't be cool with.
A lot, yeah. And so to cherry pick that and to throw it in for no particular reason, it more opens you up to criticism of like, yeah, but then why aren't they in other ways awful? And so I certainly didn't want them to undo the diversity of the casting. I would have just preferred they not put in the stupid thing about like women reading, you know, that kind of thing. So, all right, we've covered that. And Lefou is a closeted gay character and a lot of stereotypes. And I want openly gay characters. I want it so badly. This just hasn't happened yet. People don't get to get their feathers ruffled until the first Disney prince relationship or princess, whatever. Dad is a clockmaker instead of an inventor. I was wondering about that choice. First of all, because Geppetto is a clockmaker, so it's weird to step on Pinocchio toes.
I think it's like because of the music box, it's more romantic that he's like a clockmaker.
Oh, right.
I don't know.
There was something about he painted his wife and his mysteriously dead wife and yeah, but then Belle ends up doing the inventing, and I wonder. So there's a couple things that they did to make her more of an action princess because I always liked Belle because when there were wolves, she fought back in the cartoon. Like I thought that she was an action princess. She was smart, capable, and fought as best she could when she was attacked by wolves, which I just would have laid down and been like, "Kill me quickly, please." But they wanted to make it more feminist, so she's pushing back against anti-feminist tropes and ideals, and neither of those is the correct word. What am I saying? Ideologies in her village, and she apparently invents things now instead of her. Like, I wonder if they took it away from her dad to give it to her to make her more capable, and then at the very end, she breaks Gaston's arrows and fights with him over his gun and jumps over a couple of towers and stuff so that she can have more of an active role in the climactic fight scene. So
I feel like they did a better job of making her smart and capable in the cartoon because when her dad was like, "I need the who's what's it," and then she hands it to him and he goes, "Well, no, this is actually
that happens in the live action, not the cartoon.
Oh no, I think it happens. Well, we can double check on this one and also cut this out.
We're gonna cut this out because you got them confused.
No, I'm pretty sure. When's the last time you watched the cartoon? I'll admit it, but I don't know.
I tell you what, you're wrong, but watching that scene to prove you're wrong not only tasted sweet and delicious as I watched you be wrong, but I also...
You're going to leave that in, aren't you?
Yes, I am. We're going to leave this whole argument in.
It was a dog-legged clencher, by the way.
It was a dog-legged clincher that he was trying to get. The line in the cartoon that is so wonderful is her father saying, "Don't you worry, this invention's going to be the start of a new life for us." And he's right, but not in the way that he thinks. So he thinks he's going to sell the invention and they're going to get a lot of money and be happy because whatever, and I don't know, start a new life with the money. But instead...
he's taking it to like his whole thing is that he's taking it to event.
Yes.
And that's why he leaves.
And he gets lost and finds the Beast Castle, which is what draws Belle to the Beast Castle. And they have a brand new life as a result of that invention, but not in the way that he thought. So I thought it was just a great line, dramatic irony. It's beautiful. Anyway, I don't know what I'm going to leave in and what I'm not, but I had to talk about that line at least.
But this is storytelling in 90 minutes as opposed to him painting a picture of her mom and being sad, and then they sing 4 more songs.
Oh my God, we have to rush.
Okay.
I have so many notes. Okay, so she built a donkey laundry machine, and I have to say, it takes longer to build a donkey laundry machine than to just do your laundry, right? Like, there's no reason she had to tie a barrel to a donkey. She had to find a donkey. She made a miniature version of it. You know, whose donkey was that? Not hers. And she, you know, she tried it on a goat first. No, she didn't do that. But she did make like a miniature version of it to like...
Oh, I forgot about the miniature. Okay.
Yeah. So she doesn't even just like make it. She first makes a miniature version to make sure it'll work. And then she makes the big version, and then she finds a donkey, and then she takes the donkey. Like, the day's over, Belle.
I forgot. Oh, God. Oh, God.
She's like, will this roll?
I forgot about the miniature donkey laundry machine.
Yes.
She had to find a mini barrel and a mini track and a mini model. Oh, God.
She had a...
Oh, God, you're going to have to recut this because I'm laughing and coughing too hard.
Move aside from the microphone while I... She found a small barrel. And the fact of the matter is, ask any Cooper in town, barrels are big. They don't make like real small ones. And so that would have required finding somebody or something or a Cooper or somebody to make a teeny tiny barrel for you and attach a winch to it and all that.
I'm not a Cooper, but I have to imagine that making a mini barrel is at least half as hard as making a barrel that makes you money, right?
Okay. I had to look it up because I just wanted to make sure. But yes, for those who don't know, a Cooper is a maker or repairer of casks and barrels. So yes, she had a mini barrel just lying around in case she needed to build a washing machine. And meanwhile, I have to assume that it took her 6 weeks to build this washing machine. And she and her father are just sitting in their own filth, in their dirty clothes, because she wants to read a book while the laundry is being done. And we're supposed to be very impressed by how intelligent she is. And I think that this is they put this in again to give her more personality and autonomy, but also because later when she is in the castle, she makes a rope out of stuff and to try to escape, and we have to believe she's capable of that or something. But as it turns out, I would have believed she was capable of that without her building a donkey washing machine.
Well, here's the thing. What was she trying to prove with the miniature? Did she like have a mini donkey that she was like pulling like Harry Potter in the first movie playing with his stupid plastic horses? Was he like mini donkey laundry machine aficionado?
As far as I can recall, she had it on a rope that she was holding in a track that she was using a wagon wheel to mimic the track. And so the only thing she was confirming was like that the rope would pull the barrel and the barrel would roll. And she was like, yes, this barrel is rolling. I did it.
I'm pretty sure Gaston could figure out that like a round thing could get pulled by a rope by a thing that pulls. And we really need to know what she was testing.
Yes.
Like what did she aim to learn by having a tiny barrel on a tiny track that she couldn't just like figure out by inspection?
In conclusion, it seems like it would have been easier to just go do the laundry. But then a small child appears. A wild small child appears. Do you fight, grab a Pokeball, or run? She's got big hair and a bonnet, and she's like, what are you doing? And Belle's like, the laundry, super casual. Like, yeah, I built a donkey laundry machine.
I built a donkey laundry machine.
No big deal.
It's like, no big deal. I built it.
That's super cool. And then when it next cuts to Belle and this little girl, she's teaching her how to read. And I have to assume that Belle just carries around a My First Reader book in her apron pocket, just in the off chance she encounters wild children that need to be taught to read. Because, like, I mean, I suppose we could believe that in the cut, she ran to the schoolhouse found a book on how to read and brought it back. And if any small child was still waiting there without the promise of cupcakes, I would eat my other shoe. I had to eat a shoe in the last episode, so I only have one other shoe to eat. And so that's weird. But she's teaching this child how to read with a book that I guess she just carries around in case of emergency needing to teach reading. And that's when the townsfolk, the main male town, how do I say it? Like the main male bigot townsperson and the main female bigot townsperson, who ends up being Cogsworth's wife, come up and they're like, we've got to do something about this, like a super evil villain way. And it's like, what? Why? Just tell her to stop reading. Like, what are you doing? Don't you have a hobby?
This is a thing that happens in movies a lot, I think, where if it was such a closed down town, they would just get her out of there some ways. Like, oh, you've got to go. Yeah. Like, they wouldn't be like, oh, my, never. You know, they'd just be like, get her out of there.
They would just accuse her of being a witch. And there you go.
Well, maybe. But, like, they'd just be like, you got to go to the store. You got your chores to do. They're not going to, like, I don't know. So, maybe I'm wrong.
Well, no, it's just, I just want to,
They're hamming it up.
I'm watching the time is all. The problem with this is that it does not go anywhere. So in a story structure, if you present villains who do not believe women can do things, they must be shown up by the end. She must show them actually women can do things, and you are wrong to think this about me, right? In other words, that little girl's got to save the day by reading something, you know, to bring it back.
Especially with this kind of selling it.
Yes, like, they really push it, right? So, and they don't. Like, at the end, the comeuppance is that they're all fighting furniture and they lose. And that has nothing to do with Belle's capability.
It has nothing to do with whether or not women should read.
Yes, nothing at all. So they brought it up to create extra conflict for a movie that's already pretty bloated, and it goes nowhere. We still haven't made it to the Beast's castle, so I feel like we should try to make it to the castle before we cut for the next episode.
Okay.
I think we're almost there anyway.
Is Lonely Tower?
No, we're not in the Lonely Tower yet.
Okay.
Okay, I was checking my this note. This note feels like it is in the wrong place, but I'll say it. They try to give the Beast an actual personality in this, and somehow in doing so make him less likable. And in general, I saw very little chemistry between Belle and the Beast. I think by the very end of the movie, I was willing to call them good friends. But he insults her taste in books, gives her the library as an afterthought. I think that they wanted it to be his idea rather than Lumiere's, which was what it was in the cartoon. Fair enough. I mean, Cogsworth's iconic line. Oh, nope, can't say it. Cogsworth's memorable line. I said iconic too much.
His memorable
line, flowers, chocolates, promises you don't intend to keep, which, if I am correct, was an improv by David Ogden Stiers. But it ends up being Lumiere thinking, go give her the library. And yet the Beast is delighted to give it to her and wants her to be happy, and that's that, right? So that at least there's that. In the live action, he's the one who comes up with it, but it's like an afterthought. Oh, you like it? Well, okay, it's yours. And she's like, really? And he's like, yeah.
I'll be corrected on this, and maybe we have to cut this out. Mm-hmm. But she asked him some sort of question like, oh, have you read them? And he's like, whatever. And rather than be like, oh, no, like these are all my favorites and we have this thing to bond over.
Oh, yeah. She says, have you really read all these books? And he says, no, some of them are in Greek. And she's like, oh, was that a joke? And I'm like, oh, God, this banter is painful. And also the CG Beast is really cringeworthy. But again, this is not in the right place. I don't know why I wrote this note. Maybe I just didn't want to forget to write it. I'm trying to see if we've missed any plot holes. I think we need to tease the mystery of Belle's dead mother.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that the best time to talk about that is when they use the stupid book to go find out what happened to her. But we should at least talk about, so they set up that there's a mystery behind how Belle's mother died. And her father refuses to talk about it, I guess because he loved her so much that it's painful to talk about. But it also kind of seems like, given how they talk about it later and the way that he acts in the very beginning, that there's some reason he doesn't want Belle to know how she died. And so there's this whole mystery built up, and it's hilarious because, well, I guess I have to say it. We'll get to it. when they end up in Paris. But they did set up a mystery that Belle's mother died. And this is in my plot hole list because, of course, in general, people say like, oh, Disney movies, they never have a mother, right? And they couldn't give her a mother because they had to stay true to the story and whatever. So instead they like gave her a mother in her backstory and at least explained why she wasn't there, which, you know, okay, still nobody cared. But
there was a spec script of Disney's Aladdin where he did have a mother, and they were just like, nope.
Yeah. All right, so let's wrap up here. We'll get to the castle. Maurice gets lost. He steals a rose. The beast captures him. He encounters the talking furniture and this is, I guess, a plot hole they wanted to fill, is instead of being delighted by it, he is freaked out and runs, which is what would happen, inventor or no, if you encountered a talking teacup. And so a terrifying, I mean, like, the design for the furniture was terrible. The Mrs. Potts, the paint moving on her face and Chip with I hated it, but he runs.
This is a thing you can do with a cartoon that you can't do with CG or live action.
Yeah.
Where when it's a cartoon, you just skip all of that kind of, like, it's a kind of an uncanny valley thing. You don't go, is it the paint moving on the porcelain?
Yes.
You just go, it's a talking tea kettle.
They tried to be so clever with how they would make faces out of the furniture, and the wardrobe looks terrifying, and Mrs. Potts looks terrifying, and in the cartoon, they just slapped faces on them, and it's like, yay!
It's cartoon. It's cartoon tea kettle.
You know, like, I think...
it's like a cartoon dog.
Mrs. Potts's spout was her nose, so they worked with it a little bit, right? They worked with the furniture shape a little bit, but for the most part, they were like, they have eyeballs, you know, just like Olaf. They just have eyeballs now. Go with it, you know, and of course a clock face. So they had to do that. The clock face is his face. Yeah. I get it. And using the hands as a mustache.
But they're having fun. Like, but it's just like, you know, like, oh, it's a clock. He's having a good time.
But when you see Lumiere and Mrs. Potts move, their bases move like bendy, like rubbery. They are cartoons. And they're so stiff in the live action that Mrs. Potts can't even move. She needs to get around on a cart, because she doesn't have that bend. She's, quote, live action. She's meant to look live action. Anyway, so yeah, he gets captured. Philippe runs back. Belle starts talking to him, but it looks a little weirder. Not that I don't talk to my animals, but like, at least in the cartoon, Philippe was, here's the word, get ready for it, guys, sentient. And so, at least on some level, he seemed to understand her. And so it made sense when she was like, please take me to my father. But it was just Emma Watson yelling at a horse for a bit in this.
Yeah,
where's my dad? And the horse is like, I am a horse.
I am a horse.
You know?
Our oats involved.
Yes. So she goes back to the castle, and she... I love Ian McKellen, but he just sounds very tired in the part of Cogsworth. There's no life to it. There's no life to the part at all. But we meet Cogsworth and Lumiere, and Belle goes into the castle, and if you encountered a magical castle with talking teacups and an enormous beast, which would you warn your child about first? The teacup or the beast?
I've got to go with whatever's got the teeth.
Yes. Okay, good. Good answer. So I just wanted to know in case Warren ever came after you, or Ari, you know, and you were in a castle. Because he says, Belle, this castle's enchanted, not, Belle, there is a giant beast, and he lives here, and he has teeth. Please leave. So he warns her about kind of like an enchantment. And here is...
that's just intriguing. Like, oh, an enchanted castle.
And here is another plot hole they fix. As a parent, you know this. A parent would never agree to switch places with her child in this situation. And so Belle has to trick her father into switching places with her.
There you go.
And so, and he has to be dragged away, and he doesn't want it, right? So that, and she assures him she'll try to escape because, of course, you know, she didn't try to escape. She just left in the cartoon. She was like, I will stay here forever. And then 2 hours later, she's like, hey, it's scary. I'm leaving. So she just kind of left, and no one really cared.
Well, that makes more sense. It's like, I'll trade places with you. Bye.
So, and then there's the beast, and that's the first time you really see him, and it's not great CG. They try to give him more of like a human mouth, I suppose, so they could make him form words. But
for the singing.
Yeah. Without the snout, he looks really weird. And Belle takes her father's place in the dungeon tower thingy. I don't know, I'm singing it. And they're going to fall in love. No, you know what? I want to end here. I want to end here because I'm so angry about this, even though it's been an hour. So angry. Okay. Belle ends up in a tower owned and operated by a beast. And some furniture saves her, including a clock and a candelabra. And then she finds out that not only can the feather duster fly, but it can also talk. And then I don't know if the wardrobe talks yet. I don't think so. This is another plot hole, is they seem to have, for some reason, given Audra McDonald wardrobe narcolepsy because she was sleeping in the cartoon, and I guess they thought it was weird that she only woke up when Belle bumped into her, or like, why was she asleep? And I don't think they needed to give that a reason either, but for some reason she's constantly tired. I don't know why. So anyway, but she's talking furniture, right? There's lots of talking furniture. And then she picks up a hairbrush and goes, is everything here alive? And tells the hairbrush, hello, what is your name? And they laugh at her. That is a very logical conclusion to draw. A clock and a candelabra are laughing at her for daring to think the hairbrush might talk.
And I'm going to go back to the cartoon Be Our Guest sequence where there's lots of dancing plates and dishes, and you can ask the dishes. It's delicious. But those aren't characters, and they don't become humans at the end of the thing. So they're playing fast and loose with like what is real and what is not the whole time. And then they're laughing at poor Emma Watson for asking the hairbrush what his name is. And I think people have asked this before. It's just like, how many other cups in Chip's cabinet are...
I wonder, that's it, is I wonder if that scene is a little nod and a wink to what people are saying about how every fork and plate and cup is alive. How many servants does this guy have? Why does Chip have brothers and sisters and then not have brothers and sisters when they all turn back into humans, right? And so that was one of I guess we can call that one of the plot holes that they tried to fill, is like that scene is to establish, no, in this version, not everything in the castle is alive. We made sure to constrain it to just the right number of furnitures to
which
be the
we
servant.
don't define.
Yeah, furnitures.
Furnishings?
Furnishings. And so I got, but the thing is, so sure, they established that, whatever. I got upset that they laughed at her. You are literally a candle, sir. You are literally a candle. Sorry, candelabra, huge difference, right? With your strange French accent, Ewan McGregor. Why are you laughing at her for thinking that possibly the hairbrush the feather duster was flying around her room 2 seconds ago? What are you doing?
I would like to think that if I arrived in a magical situation, I would lie for longer about how cool I was with it.
I would start talking to every hairbrush in open defiance of those who would laugh at me.
Like, if the hairbrushes were talking to me and, like, there were beasts and there were castles and, you know, I'm from the upper Midwest and I wasn't expecting any of those things, I would keep the screams inside and I'd just be like, and what's your name?
Yeah.
I would scream later. But, like, I'd just be like, what's going on around here? Tell me a bit more.
That's kind of Kevin Kline's Maurice. He was like, oh, you know, like Chip apologizes for scaring him. And he's like, oh, it's no problem. And then he kind of, like, gets up and then he runs. Like, he, like, tries to be nice about it.
Yeah, that, I mean.
You should have more chill than Maurice, but he tried. Thank you so much for listening, friends. Thank you for existing. Thank you for helping us to maintain our marbles for just one more week. As you can probably tell from hearing us talk about this movie, we needed help maintaining our marbles with this one. We made it through a good chunk of my notes. Keep an eye out on Twitter next week for the screenshot of my plot holes list. Support us in various ways. We have a Patreon, obviously, because we have some amazing patrons who decided to patronize us. And then we also have, like, Buy Me a Coffee. No, that's me. I have a Buy Me a Coffee, but we have a Ko-fi. There are too many support sites. We have lots and lots of things in the description below. That being said, we will catch you next time. Until then, I am Rebecca.
And I'm Alan.
Bye, friends.
Bye.